Hi everyone, I'm Jade from Psych Safety. I wanted to talk today about a model that many of us first came across in leadership development training, and it's called the Johari Window. It's one of those frameworks that seems really simple at first, and the more you get into it, actually the more interesting it is, but also sometimes the more misleading and sometimes misused it is too. So, quick history lesson first. The Johari window was first created back in the 1950s by two psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham. The name Johari is an amalgamation of their names, so I always thought it was Johari, but it's not, it's Johari, it's Joe and Harry, literally their two names combined. What the model does is give us this lovely 4x4 or 2x2 rather, a quadrant, which maps the qualities and characteristics that are known to us about ourselves against those that are known to others, and also not known to us and not known to others, and every combination of those in between. So within the Johari window, we have the open area, so that's the things that are known about ourselves to us and to others. We have the hidden area, so that's the things that we know about ourselves but others don't know about us. Maybe we've not shared them yet, or maybe we are deliberately keeping them hidden. We have the blind spot, which is the things that the ways that others see us that we haven't yet seen ourselves or haven't described ourselves as. And then we have the unknown area, which might be things we haven't discovered about ourselves yet, or it might just be things that don't apply, depending on how we use the model. It's often used as part of leadership development training or in feedback exercises where people will choose adjectives to describe themselves, and then they'll ask their teammates or their colleagues or even sometimes friends and family to choose adjectives that describe them, and then you can map them into the appropriate area of the quadrant depending on whether you chose them or your teammates chose them, and so on. So why is this such a sort of popular and well-known tool? Well, it can be a great tool for self-reflection. It can help us to notice how we show up. It can help us reflect on how we're coming across to others and the way that others are perceiving us, and whether there are gaps between the way that we think we're coming across and the way that we're actually coming across. So one example might be, I might perceive myself to be incredibly approachable, but when I do the Johari window exercise, none of my teammates describe me as approachable. So that might lead me to reflect on my behaviour and whether there's something I need to be doing more deliberately to make it clear that I am actually approachable and people can come to me with questions, concerns, ideas, problems, etc. Another thing might be if, let's say, we consider ourselves to be a really fun and light-hearted person, and yet when we do the Johari window exercise, everyone describes us as serious and formal. And it might be that we say, oh, actually, I'm okay with that. That's good to know, but I'm happy to keep it like that. Or it might be that we say, do you know what, I want to bring more of my fun, light-hearted side into the way that I work. So these are little ways that it can prompt self-reflection and can help us to think a bit more clearly perhaps about how we're coming across at work and how we're behaving at work. It can also, along the same lines, help us to think more intentionally about disclosure and what we choose to share and what we choose to keep hidden. In lots of our jobs, in lots of our work, there might be things that we choose to keep in our personal lives, we choose not to bring into work, and we can use this alongside tools that we often work with at Psych Safety, things like personal user manuals, personal readmes, to be very intentional in what we choose to share with our colleagues in order to help us to work better with them and to build better working relationships with them. So that can involve a certain amount of saying, I want to share this, and right now I'm choosing not to share that. So the Johari window can be one framework which might work nicely in conjunction with that sort of work, really just to make explicit the fact that it is okay actually to have some things in our hidden area. But there are ways of using it that I've seen that I think are misuses and potentially quite risky uses of the Johari window. So where I get a bit concerned is where I see the Johari window being treated as some kind of model of the self, as if what's described on here is some absolute truth. It's not. If anything, it's a model of perception, and perception is not the same as truth. We all see the world through our own unique lenses. We have our own biases, our own prejudices, our own stereotypes, both in terms of how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others. So the Johari window exercise, like any, is vulnerable to those biases, is vulnerable to picking up on some of that. As an example, the same behaviour that in a woman is labelled as emotional might in a man be seen as passionate. This also intersects with race. What a black woman says may be described by someone as aggressive, when very similar behaviour from a white man might be described as being a strong leader or having the courage of their convictions. So we want to be very mindful whenever we're doing exercises like this and we're inviting people to comment on, describe us, present their perceptions of us, that we keep in mind these are subjective perceptions. They are not some absolute model of the truth. I've also seen some websites say that the Johari window is a great way to eliminate bias. It's clearly not doing that. The biases within the biases that we all have within our own unique take on the world are going to come through in any use of this exercise too. So while the Johari window can prompt useful reflection, it shouldn't be taken as some kind of magical objective feedback about who we are. And on that point, in a lot of our work on psychological safety, what we reflect on is ways that we are communicating with each other in ways which are kind, which are clear. If we're sharing feedback, it ought to be specific and actionable for that person. The Johari window isn't doing that. What it gives is a list of descriptors which are often decoupled from the behaviours where we might have come to label them with those descriptors. So you may well find that if you do the Johari window exercise and you get descriptors you weren't expecting, you don't necessarily know what it is that those descriptors have come from or what to do about it next. So used thoughtfully, I think the Johari window can be a great conversation starter, but misused, it does potentially blur the line between perception and reality, or between behaviour and identity, and all that is likely to do in teams is increase anxiety and potentially even decrease trust and connection between people. So we want to use models like this and frameworks like this where they're helpful, but we want to do them with a certain amount of criticality, with plenty of reflection, and with acknowledging both their strengths and their limitations. So I hope that's useful, and I hope you enjoy working with this stuff.